Greetings and welcome to the channel. I'm the Shotgun Shogun. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, well, welcome back. So, you may have seen we're getting a 5-star selector ticket from the Azerion Foundation Day login event. Now, when they announced this, that it would be a 5-star selector, people were like, I'm picking Hua Young. To which I scoffed. Ha! Oh, you guys think they're gonna put a Hua Young in this? Man, just give me some of that copium and that hopium that you are huffing on. I thought that it would be a selector based on maybe the last 3 storylines. People would complain, but it is what it is. People complained anyways. But they did it. The Mad Lads actually are going to allow you to pick Hua Young. Now, there are some other units in this that you could pick that are probably better for you if you're a newer character or a newer player. Things like Tamarin. If you're a new player, I would actually suggest Tamarin 100%. I think Tamarin is one of the most important PvE characters in the game for everything other than really hunts. But you don't care because you're here. Because you are dead set on picking Hua Young. Now, in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about Hua Young builds, Hua Young counters, how to use her, and how you are going to be very disappointed in your results based on what you've heard of this literal god unit, because she is good. She's great. She's fantastic. She's the benchmark that all single target damage dealers have to measure up to. However, that doesn't mean that she is not without flaws. We're going to take a look at it, but as we look here, as you can see, on day 5 of this, we will be getting that selector. You can't get Arya, Tehu, Yulha, Sharon, Xeno. Sad. I know a lot of you are really hoping that you could pull a free Xeno or a free Yuna. That's probably the biggest disappointment for the vast majority of people, is not being able to get Xeno. Who's Xeno, you might ask? Yeah, it's a good question. More relevant than Tehu. That's it. So really, out of all of this, people who wanted Arya or Yulha for Guild Wars as a direct Hua Young counter, well, not this time around, boys. Not this time around. So let's take a look at Hua Young. Now, as a Hua Young enjoyer myself, this is mine. 223, about 1500 defense, about 12k HP, 7553 attack. Now, I did triple S her because, well, let's be real. Out of everything that's going on here, why not? As you can see, full 10 friendship, impeccable. I have her on the special one because I like the serious face. This face, not so much. Flustered, she's got those eyes, right? Laugh, it's a smile you want to protect. Sad, literally kind of just looks like flustered, but with her eyebrows a little bit different. Upset, no thank you. Normal's okay. Special is the serious face, because she's about to seriously kick some stuff into the ground. That's really what it is, right? So you'll see I'm using the Uberius Tooth. I've got immunity here because, well, I'd like to not get silenced or stunned first turn. Now, typically doesn't really matter all that much, because a lot of things that are going to stun you or silence you or control you, chances are they're going to strip anyways, right? It is what it is. This is a very typical build. A lot of people are running around this speed with the higher attack. You can run faster. In the beginning, I ran a 270 speed Hua Young with about 7,000 attack. The rest of my stats were very bad. However, I found that it wasn't doing enough damage for that speed, and if I wasn't able to secure a kill, she just instantly died. Let's take a look at her skills. Speaking of, her S1 attacks the enemy with a kick, increasing combat readiness of the caster by 15% when you're buffed, which you will be if you have immunity on, right? So this gives you a lot more opportunities, you know, in case, like, let's say you take some damage, right? Let's say they get rid of your shield, you take some damage. This allows you to potentially S1 things like a T-Surin, not that you see those very often, but a Spirit Eye Celine. This allows you to S1 right out the gate instead of ripping the S3, failing to kill. It gives you more options, right? So inflicts additional damage proportional to the caster's attack regardless of whether this attack hits. So this is a built-in Uberius Tooth. For those of you who don't have Uberius Tooth. Now, her S2 increases her attack by 50%. This is very similar to Gunther. And yeah, it's really good. It's why you can get so much attack on her. Pretty simple, straightforward, can't trigger critical hits. This is really good because you know what that does? That allows you to completely forego critical hit chance and critical hit damage. As you can see, I have some wasted stats here because, well, I'm not rolling this critical hit chance off of this helmet, and I'm not rolling this critical hit damage off of this chest piece. If I get something in the future that's better than this, I'll swap it out. It is what it is, though. I'm not mod gemming those off because, well, when it comes to the chest piece, what would I put there? Flat defense, maybe. Yeah, no. And then for the helmet, I've already got attack and attack, so rolling the crit chance into things like defense or HP would just ruin this helmet for any other speed DPS that I would need in the future. A lot of my other pieces are actually very, very optimal for her, like this neck, which is actually pretty insane. This neck is crazy. Same with with these boots. I already rolled attack previously on these boots, so I can't get rid of this crit damage. Not that I would. Yeah, these pieces of gear that I have for her, very, very strong. So this is a very high gear score Hua Young. Now you can get away with less, right? You don't have to go with this build. Now a lot of people at the very beginning, especially at the very beginning when Rimuru is still a problem, you would want to go with the minimum health possible in order to one-shot the Rimuru. So hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself here. We needed to finish talking about the skills and why this matters. So you can't you can't crit, so that allows you for a lot more gear flexibility in terms of stats, right? It gives you a bigger stat pool. Damage suffered from critical hits decreased by 30%. This is really good. Built-in Giga Arias, POV for crits, right? With more than one damage reduction, blah blah blah, you know all that. At the start of the battle and at the end of the turn, grants a barrier to the caster for one turn. This increases it proportional to her attack. This gives her a lot of survivability. This is really, really huge. And then her S3, after dispelling all debuffs from the caster, attacks the enemy with a secret technique, grants immunity for 2 turns. I don't know why they needed to do that. Seems pretty crazy. Penetrates the target's defense. When the target's max health is greater than the caster's max health, damage increases proportional to the difference in the up to a maximum of 100%. Now, at the very beginning, people were like, oh, well, I need to have the minimum amount of HP so that I always get the 1,000 or the 100%, right? But it's not really that huge of a spread, honestly. It was like 6,600 something, I believe, was the difference. So if you're going into any sort of tank, an FCC, an AROS, you know, a tanky bruiser, you're going to get your 100% damage, like guaranteed, right? If you're at 12k HP, they gotta be like less than 20k, which things like, you know, ML Kawerik, ML Ravi, any sort of tank, most bruisers are going to be in that range. Are you going to be able to kill like a 12k HP Rimuru on POV? No. No, probably not. That was the problem, right? And people mathed it out at the very beginning, and they were like, oh yeah, no, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and blah, 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 and you need to have this much HP. And so people were stacking defense on her because that was giving her more EHP versus the actual HP. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can run this. You can run that version, which is the version that I run, but I've noticed that a lot of people have started switching over to more of kind of like a tankier bruiser build. Now, maybe you're not one-shotting another bruiser, right? But even like, let's say you have 16k HP, right? As long as they have 23k HP, you're good. Any tank that you need to bust is done. Yeah, they're gone. Yeah, and it gives you a lot more survivability, right? Because with the 30% decrease crit damage, your big beefy shield, stuff like that, you can afford to go a little bit tankier. You can go into a bit longer of a game, because even if you don't one-shot the tank, they're going to be super hurt. And unless there's like a Ruel or something along those lines, it's going to be hard for that tank to come back. And Hua-Young's just going to lap back around, kick him in the face with the S1, and chances are they're done. If you bring a book, Soulburn S3 into S1, and pretty much anything is dead, right? Now, one of the problems that you're going to run into is that the unit that Hua-Young was put into the game to beat was a Ravi, right? And before, people were running Seed a Ravi, Draco played a Ravi. Once Hua-Young came into the game, everybody switched to Proof of Valor, and no, Hua-Young is killing that. Unless that a Ravi is geared very, very, very poorly, Hua-Young is not killing a Ravi, so she just kills everything else. So congratulations, you have an everything except for POV a Ravi killer. You can still kill most a Ravis with like a Soulburn S3 into S1. However, it's tough. Now, the other thing about Hua-Young, as you can see here, I have a level 30 Uberius Tooth. I've had Uberius Tooth for a really long time. I used to use Uberius Tooth on Gunther back in the day because he was Hua-Young before Hua-Young was Hua-Young. Hua-Young without Uberius Tooth doesn't feel very good. You are going to rip the S3 into somebody with Gators or an L's Fist or something along those lines, and you're gonna have a bad time because a lot of damage comes from the Uberius Tooth. A lot of the damage from the S1 comes from the basically double Uberius Tooth proc. So when you see Hua-Young's just absolutely dumping on things, one-shotting them without a care, a lot of that extra damage comes from the Uberius Tooth proc after the fact. That's not to discount that without Uberius Tooth, Hua-Young is not an absolute mad lad of a unit, but Hua-Young is not nearly as good without Uberius Tooth. And unfortunately, Uberius Tooth is one of those artifacts that if it's not maxed out, if it's not 30%, it is 50-50 on whether or not it will proc. And if you're running Uberius Tooth and it doesn't proc because you only have a plus 15 or a plus 20 something, feels even worse because that's basically a dead artifact slot. Now, what are some alternatives that you could use for this? Let's take a look real quick. Now, I already mentioned one, L's Fist, right? So you could definitely use L's Fist, Indestructible Gators. They do increase your attack by 10%. So this is a very baseline artifact. Here's 10%. This is an extra piece of gear, right? I have seen some people use Anti-Magic Mask This has the increased attack, increased defense, increased speed. Increased critical hit damage is going to be completely useless, but half of those are pretty good, right? I don't think, yeah, you don't want Azure Comet. Merciless Glutton can work. Single attack when increases your damage by 16%. This is not bad if you have one of these. If you want to meme around, you can use Creation and Destruction to just S3 over and over and over again. Sigurd's Scythe, I would say, is very, very good for her as well. This would just give her even more staying power. So if you have a Sigurd's Scythe, not only that, but once you're below 50%, this is going to increase your attack as well. So that's going to be huge because your S1 is going to do more pop damage on the end of it. Your S3 is going to do more damage. You're going to heal from all of that. So it's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. I don't believe that healing, though, comes from extra damage. I haven't tested it. Yeah, I haven't tested it. You could potentially... No, you don't want Hellcutter. El's Fist, though, is pretty good. Yeah, I'll be real. Like, El's Fist Hua-Young is pretty solid. Increases your attack by 10%, just like Indestructible Gators. I'd almost say that this is even better than Indestructible Gators because, well, it's a 4-star. Everybody's probably got an El's Fist. Not only that, but as your health decreases, attack and speed increases up to 32.5%. That's a +9. I don't have a maxed out copy of it, so... You know, it is what it is, right? I think that El's Fist is a very solid spot for her. You could, but I think those are probably some of your best bets, right? I don't think that Symbol's not very good on her because, well, you don't need hit chance. Guide to a Decision, if you don't take any damage, this could be pretty okay, but not very great. Plus, it would just overlap her barrier. Warhorn could work. Yeah, I think realistically, if you're going with this, it's gonna be an El's Fist if you don't have Uberius Tooth or Sigurd's Scythe. I think that those are probably going to be your best bets. You could potentially go with like a Durandal, just to increase your combat readiness so that you're lapping a little bit more to get your ridiculously OPS 3 off even more. So those are the artifacts. Like I said, there's really 3 builds. There's the Giga Fast high damage paper thin Hua-Young that's just there to take out like an aggro DPS like really fast and then do what she has to do, right? You basically make the fight a 3v4 right out the gate. There is this one, which is the one that I really like, and there's also the bulkier one. You can probably run her around like 210 speed. You don't really want to go much slower than that, but looking at it like, you know, around 15-16k HP, about the same amount of defense and as much attack as you can get. Like, realistically, I think that, you know, you want to focus really heavily on that attack. Now, one of the things that you're going to want to take into consideration, right, is you're going to want to worry about Hua-Young's counters. Now, the best counter that you can do for Hua-Young is just pre-ban her. Yeah, like literally you could just pre-ban her and it's really not that big of a deal, right? Just boom, done. And yeah, you just pre-ban her in RTA. Good luck actually using her in RTA, because a lot of people will just constantly pre-ban her. I've actually thought about taking my gear off of my Hua-Young in favor of like maybe, I don't know, Carrot or something along those lines, just because, well, I'm a Hua-Young pre-banner. You might think, well, hey, but I thought you had, like, you have a pretty cracked Hua Young. Wouldn't you want to use it all the time? Yes, but if you first pick Hua Young, you are very, very susceptible to cleave. Aggro, a lot of these things are going to be very, very bad. Hua Young is very, very cleavable. Ida, let's just go, hold on, let's just look at some of the counters here. Shu is an absolute menace to Hua Young right now. I would actually say that Shu is responsible for Hua Young's sub 50% win rate in the Epic 7 World Cup. This unit absolutely destroys Hua Young, and it's because her S2 pens defense, which, as you could see earlier, my Hua Young, very reliant on defense. If you penetrate all of that, this thing is going to just one-tap your Shu. It's very, very rough. You also have Blue Kisei. Now, you might think, okay, but it's not going to one-shot me. Well, somebody will be like, somebody in the comment section is going to be like, my Kisei one-shots Hua Young's. It doesn't necessarily matter if the Kisei one-shots your Hua Young. What matters here is the S3. If you have, unless you're building a lot of effect resist on your Hua Young, which is not something that you're going to want to do, or most people are going to want to do, as long as you can reset the cooldown on Hua Young's S3, she is dead in the water and just has S1. Now, S1 can still hurt quite a bit, but Kisei will just come right back around into the S1. Now, damage dealt increased by 70% when the target is buffed. That means that any decent Kisei is going to one-tap, or is going to two-tap your Hua Young. You S3, lap back around, and then S1, and then Hua Young is absolutely dead. Because yeah, if she takes a turn, she gets the barrier, you lap back around, Kisei just S1s or even Soulburn S1s, and that's a dead Hua Young. Add in penetration set and or a cracked Kisei, and it's just shambles. One thing you'll see a lot on Guild Wars defense is like Hua Young, Peyra, Aravi, right? That's easily counterable by like a DN Kisei light bait. Kisei takes out Hua Young. After the fact, whoever, you know, DN Peyra comes through, unbuffables, DN cleanses with the S2. Kisei kills or hits Hua Young with the S3, laps back around after she goes into stealth so that nobody can stun and or kill her, and then you just finish up the job, and then afterwards you deal with the other two. Really not that big of a deal. So what else besides Shu and Kisei? You do also have Peyra to contend with. Stun on S1, escort, mitigation. That means that chances are with a 30% mitigation, your Hua Young isn't killing anything on the board. Yeah, a POV, that's a free POV that goes into Peyra for anything on the board. Not only that, but it's going to RNL about 7 times. It's gonna stun you. So unless you have some sort of cleanse, you're going to get stripped, unbuffable, stunned, and then controlled afterwards. Not only that, but again, if you do get to go, Dedge. You know, you're not going to be killing anything with that. Ran is pretty rough for that, just because of cleaves, right? You have Cerise, which can S3 lap back around and then stun unbuffable, or if you're not using an immunity set, boom, stun. Hua Young is very susceptible to stun is susceptible to control unless you have some sort of cleanse. If you can just shut her down and control her, then she can't put up immunity. Pretty straightforward. Arya is also another good counter to Hua Young, especially in RTA. If somebody drops an Arya, you have to ban this, because if you have Hua Young, Arya has a built-in POV in RTA because of the frenzy changes. Not only that, but Arya allows you to hide everybody else, and Hua Young is not killing an Arya in RTA. This also means that Arya is going to clap back. You're going to get the counters and then the strips with the S2. Arya is a really good answer to a Hua Young. Fairy Tale Tenebria can strip and provoke, although I believe the barrier before immunity in RTA, but I think RTA is random. Guild Wars and Arena isn't. Yeah, so there's those. You also have Ice Kali, who can slap on the bombs and detonate them. That ignores effect resist on the S3. If the unit's fire. Yeah, and then increases your combat readiness, so you can just go fast. Bombs, done. Literally, this unit was absolutely built to counter the first turn Hua Young. So unless you bring some sort of cleanse, which chances are, somebody's going to be like, oh well, hand guy exists, a DN. Amelia, yes, all of those things exist, I understand, in a vacuum. However, again, Ice Kali is a good answer to Hua Young in things like Guild Wars, stuff like that, right? For the most part, when it comes to water, those are going to be a lot of your answers. However, outside of that, one of the absolute biggest answers to Hua Young is going to be Operator Sigrid, because you start with a barrier. Your S2, her S2 is going to absolutely destroy your Hua Young. Now, this is another reason why sometimes people have opted to go with more of the tanky Hua Young, favoring HP over nothing but defense, because things like this, right? You have 100% defense pen if they have a barrier. Now, a lot of times because Hua Young's relies solely on defense for the most part, this means that pretty much any Operator Sigrid, regardless of how scuffed her gear is, even without attack buff, is going to be able to one-shot your Hua Young. Now, you do have the damage mitigation of the crit. It's understandable, but this is still going to be a natural predator for the Hua Young. So if this is drafted against you in RTA, you have to have some sort of answer, and it has to be AoE, because you can just assume that the Operator Sigrid is going to be on Guiding Light most likely, so you're not going to be able to get rid of it before it takes a turn without some sort of AoE, maybe like an F10 or a fast FCC. Most Operator Sigrids are built around like 240 speed, Guiding Light with high damage, right? So you need to kind of take that into consideration when it comes to this unit right here. Another option too, when it comes to punishing Hua Young, is Spectre Tenebria. Depending on how their draft goes, if you can draft enough mitigation that Hua Young can't really make it through all of your mit before FCC gets a chance to absolutely dump on, Spectre Tenebria gets a chance to dump all over the other team, including your Hua Young. That is also another option. There's quite a few other things too, but obviously like Cleave and Aggro are two of the biggest things that you can do. Any sort of defense penetration unit is going to absolutely just wreck Hua Youngs. If you first pick Hua Young, they're going to potentially cleave you. The other thing too, like I was saying earlier with like Ida, right, is that Ida comes through, strips your immunity, and then stuns you, and then you get taken care of. Yeah. brand defense break into E to cleave, your Hua Young is going to be just absolutely dead. This is another big predator of Hua Young in RTA. Stealth units, obviously, because Hua Young can't hit them. So there's a lot of things that you do have to take into consideration before just coming out and going, I'm just going to pick the most OP unit ever and I'm going to win. Not only that, but like I said, if you look at my arena games, my RTA matches, battle log, Hua Young ban, Hua Young ban, Hua Young banned, banned, Hua Young. Phew. Bless me. Hua Young banned. Hua Young right there, banned. That's right. You queue up against me, you don't get to have any fun with your brand new Hua Young. One of the reasons why is like Hua Young is a terror to standard players. I draft very standard, and I don't want to play around Hua Young. So there's also that, right? Just the threat of I don't want to have to draft a blue. I don't want to draft aggro. I don't want to cleave. These aren't my playstyles, so I just opt to ban Hua Young out, even though I have a pretty good one and I enjoy using Hua Young. But when it comes to Guild Wars and things like that, Hua Young is an absolute menace. The other thing too that you have to take into consideration with Guild Wars and Arena is that Hua Young doesn't suffer from the elemental POV frenzy that she does in RTA. So hopefully that sheds some light on Hua Young. I think that she's a great pickup. Honestly though, I do think that like Alencia might be a little bit more of a better flex pick. Alencia answers a lot of things in the current meta. Same with Shu, but in terms of overall account power, good job picking Hua Young. Yeah, hopefully this helped out. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Are you picking Hua Young, or what are you picking? Obviously, if you already have Hua Young, I'm sure you're picking something else, but otherwise, let me know down below. And if you like this content, like, fave, subscribe, comment down below. Follow me over on Twitch, The Real Shotgun Shogun, and I'm just gonna see how many times I can say comment down below. It'll be like in Super Troopers, the Meow game. I'm just gonna see how many times we can say it. Comment down below in one video. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later. Make sure you comment down below. Take it easy, homies. Peace.